Hey guys, we are going to talk about perspective drawing today. So hopefully you already watched that intro video that kind of introduced you to the idea of perspective. And now I'm going to walk you through just the basics of 1-point perspective. So you need a pencil. I grabbed a mechanical pencil as well. I have my magic rub, and most importantly, I have a ruler and I have my sketchbook. Okay, so I do have my sketchbook set up landscape style, so wide on our paper. And the first thing that I want to do is establish my horizon line and my vanishing point. So I'm going to lightly put in a horizon line. So this horizon line is sort of invisible, so we don't really want to press super hard. So I press pretty light. Hopefully you can press even lighter than that. And then I want you to go ahead and put your vanishing point right in the middle. So vanishing point means exactly what it sounds like. Everything is going to vanish at this point. So with 1-point perspective, our visual perspective is over the top. So we're going to be looking, so if you think about a bird's eye view of a city, we're going to be looking at the tops of the buildings, and then they would all vanish at this point, okay? So 1-point perspective doesn't have to be viewed from above, and I'll explain that in a little bit, but it's just kind of the easiest way to explain it. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a couple shapes. I'm going to draw a triangle up here, and I do want you to kind of do exactly what I'm doing for our practice. So I've got a triangle over there. I'm going to put a square down here. And I'm using my ruler the entire time. To make these projects look amazing, this ruler is your best friend. If you start to freehand things, you're going to have a disaster on your hands, and it's not going to have that crisp architectural look that perspective drawings tend to have. So if you really like math and precision, this is going to be right up your alley. I'm going to make a larger rectangle up here. And then I'm going to make a circle over here. Now, if I was really doing it right, I would find something to trace, but I don't have anything handy at my desk right now, so I'm just going to quickly draw in the best circle I can get, but ideally you'd want to go grab something to trace. Okay, so with 1-point perspective, we start with a full side. Okay, we're starting with a side of a shape or a side of a building, whichever you want to think of it that way, okay? When we increase to 2-point perspective, then you deal with an angle of a building. So instead of a plane, a side of a building, you deal with the angle. But we're not going to worry about that right now. We're only focused on 1-point perspective. So we've got our horizon line, okay? We've got our vanishing point. Your vanishing point always has to be on the horizon line. If you have multiple points, they are still on that horizon line, okay? And then we are going to connect our edges, so our corners of our shape are going to connect lightly, so I'm drawing lightly back to our vanishing point. So 1, 2, and 3. What about this 4th one? So if we wanted our building to be translucent and to see through it, then yes, I would need to draw that line. But that line doesn't exist when we have opaque buildings or shapes. So you never really need to do that outside corner. If it basically, the rule is if the line goes through the shape, then you don't need to do it. I'm only dealing with the outer edges that don't obstruct my shape. Okay? So I have taken my 3 corners to my vanishing point. I'm going to do the same thing on all my shapes. So I'm going from the top edge of my triangle, this close corner, and then I'm going to take this far corner. And depending on how you drew your triangle, you might not be able to draw that last point. It might not show, okay? All right, now we've got the bottom square. Again, 3 corners. My shape has 4 sides, so usually you are going to end up with -1 towards your vanishing point. Okay, so if I had a pentagon, I'd probably have 4 lines going towards my vanishing point. But for a square, I just have the 3. Now for the circle, circles don't have corners, right? We're going to use the outer edge. So I'm going to line up the outer edge to my vanishing point, holding my ruler steady, Okay, so this is sort of the end of 1-point perspective, but not really. So there is one example project that you're going to have the option to do where this is basically where you stop, okay? Because the next step is probably the most difficult part. The cutting off the edges and deciding how big or tall your shapes and buildings are is what makes it a little bit more complicated. But if you can remember the concepts of parallel, then you're going to be good to go, okay? So how do we cut off our rectangle? We're going to start here. We're going to take that edge of that rectangle, and I'm going to slide my ruler down, keeping it as parallel as possible, and I'm going to draw a new line, and that's basically where my shape is going to cut off, okay? Then from that line, I'm going to go perpendicular, which is also parallel to this edge. I'm going to go straight up and down. And this is where sometimes you might want to grab your mechanical pencil to get that finer tip inside with that ruler. Okay, so then I would take my eraser and erase anything that's left connecting to the vanishing point. So now I have a floating 3D rectangle shape in the sky. Okay, let's do the same thing for our triangle. So remember that it's all based on the shape itself. So I'm going to angle my ruler even with this line here, kind of slide it down. I'm going to make this one shorter here. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. Then I'm going to switch to the other side. So staying parallel with that side, but right where that connects together. Oh, I lost my lead. Here we go. Then this goes straight across. Okay, so the angle of the back edge should be parallel to the angle of the front edge. So we're using a little math to make sure that we have everything placed correctly, and that's what gives you that 3D look, okay? Sometimes people tend to draw lines that are sort of crooked. You've got to make sure you're staying parallel to that original shape. It doesn't matter what any other shape is doing. It matters about what side and what shape that you are using. So this line is parallel to this one. This line is parallel to that one. Okay, down here for the square, let's make a stick of butter, keeping my ruler parallel to that original square, coming down here, straight up and down, and then using my magic rub to erase whatever's left over. So we've got our stick of butter now, 3D, right there, ready to go. All right, so what do we do with the circle? Okay, this is a tricky one, but everything has to be parallel. So just because it's a curve doesn't mean it can't be parallel. So we're basically going to freehand this curve as far down as we want to cut it. So we're going to make a cylinder. So I'm going to make sure that my curve follows the original curve. And that's it. That's all I have to do for the cylinder. And then I erase out the extra. Okay, so we've got 4 different shapes here that are in 1-point perspective. Hopefully your practice made sense. Hopefully your back edges look just like my back edges. If they don't, I want you to rewind the video, listen to me again, explain it again. And if you really need to, ask mom and dad if you can pop on YouTube and search 1-point perspective. There's so many videos out there, and maybe someone else's video might click a little bit better than mine. All right, I hope you love 1-point perspective. This is as far as we're going to go, but I'm going to give a bonus 2-point perspective video for those of you that are interested and maybe ready to challenge yourselves a little bit further.